Let's see what we have here. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time by ZFG.
Hey guys. So yeah, run's about to start. So first thing, you guys may have noticed there was no file name incentive for this. That is because we have a required file name. It has to be this specific file name, no other one. And I don't trust you guys to donate for this specific file name. I don't think that'd happen. But anyway, countdown getting started in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so how about everyone introduce ourselves first?
What's up? I'm Danny B. I'm an Ocarina of Time speedrunner, currently second place in this category right behind ZFG.
Hey, I'm Safe State. I'm also an Ocarina of Time speedrunner. I also like to tinker with some of the inner mechanics of the game. And I'm soon to be second place in this category behind ZFG.
And I'm ZFG. I am running the category, and I am comfortably first place.
All right.
This is all dungeons. So what this category is, it seems self-explanatory, is beat all the dungeons. So we have a fairly specific definition for what counts as a dungeon in this. We have to get all of the spiritual stones and medallions from all of the blue warps at the end of the dungeons. And we have to have a fairly specific definition for it because this game is fairly broken and we can do some weird things. We have to have a very specific way to define it. The name all dungeons might seem a little bit weird by the end of the run, I'll just say. And that is because this game is very, very busted, very broken. And it's always been a very broken game, glitch-wise, for a long time. But it became even more busted at the end of 2019. So late 2019, there was a new glitch discovered called stale reference manipulation, SRM for short. And we'll get into details about it later, but the short version of it is it's a glitch that lets you manipulate certain parts of memory. And that's really powerful. And you can only manipulate like pretty small parts of memory at a time, but even little small pieces getting changed can be huge. And it's completely busted OOT open. So I mentioned it was found at late 2019. So if you watched the GDQ run last year, AGDQ 2020, that run actually had the very first applicable use of SRM. If you remember in that run, there was this long glitch in the Deku tree to get a bunch of items. So that was the very first real use we had of it. And throughout 2020, we've found so many more uses for it. It is an incredibly useful glitch with so many different applications. We'll be using multiple throughout this run. And it basically is, it's the biggest glitch in this run, in this game by far. And it makes this run very broken. So expect a very broken run from this. But to start out, so it's going to start out, the first 2 or so minutes will be normal-ish. So I still have to get some rupees and the sword and shield to start out. But it's going to be a little bit different than normal. So most of the time, most OOT speedruns just get 40 rupees for the shield and that's it. This run is going to need 55 rupees because I'm going to need to buy the shield and some Deku nuts. But in addition to that, I actually have to get, not only do I need more rupees, but I'm actually more limited on what rupees to get. There's actually some rupees I have to intentionally skip because part of how SRM works is that we have to arrange memory in a certain way. We have to have certain things loaded and certain things not loaded to leave holes in memory or sort of force things to load in very specific parts of memory. And to do this, we actually need to leave some rupees behind. So some rupees that would otherwise be fast, we actually have to avoid. In fact, right here, there's one specific rupee I have to avoid. All right, did it. Hardest part of the run. So here's some other rupees I have to avoid. There's normally a rupee up on that bridge that's typically pretty fast to get, or this rupee behind Mito's house I have to skip. And we end up having to go get these. But again, intentionally avoiding those rupees is to set up memory in a specific way, to arrange memory in a specific way, so that we can start doing some really important SRM shenanigans.
And I guess I'll take over talking about these SRM shenanigans. So, as ZFG approaches the shop here, we're going to get the last few rupees we need to make 55, like ZFG said, to buy Deca Shield and the Deca Nuts. And right after he leaves, we're going to get into the meat of our first instance of stale reference manipulation. And the goal of this one is going to be applying the developer's debug save file to his current save. So we've mentioned SRM a few times. What exactly is it? How does it work? When Link carries something, like when he carries a rock or a pot or a bush, the game gives him a pointer or a reference to where in memory the thing he's carrying lives. And Link uses that reference on every frame to copy his own position and rotation data directly to the thing he's carrying, so that it follows him around and the illusion that he's actually holding it is maintained. And that data getting copied over is the key to the whole glitch. If we can delete the thing Link is carrying from memory while not breaking that reference that Link has to the spot in memory where it lived, then something else can load into its place and receive that position and rotation data from Link, potentially overwriting arbitrary attributes of the new thing. So ZFG is going to move Mito here. He's going to go back and forth between the village room and the Deca Tree room through an invisible loading transition every time, unloading stuff in the previous room and loading stuff in the next room around it. And this shuffles memory up in a really particular way, and combined with the holes in memory we left behind from collecting certain rupees, we'll get one particular rock to load at the memory address we need. You also see him using his sword here because holding it out fills up some memory, and having that memory filled while crossing a room transition makes the new room load around it differently. And next, ZFG is going to do a camera glitch called Return A, caused by entering first-person mode while shielding damage on the same frame. And then we're going to navigate to the crawl space again and use that along with a nearby sign to layer a second camera glitch called Walking While Talking, which is caused by retaining the state of reading the sign. And those two glitches combined are going to allow us to hold a rock that is culled, which means it's basically suspended from updating. It's still there, it's just considered too unimportant to keep updating. Something being culled while carrying it is the recipe for allowing it to later unload from memory without breaking Link's reference to that thing, giving Link a stale reference. That's the name of the glitch. So now with both camera glitches active, we'll walk up to this rock that we placed perfectly in memory, and we're going to lift it while striking it with our sword, which gets rid of one of the two camera glitches, leaving us with only walking while talking. And that's going to do something crazy to the camera. It's going to send the camera flying backwards to the sign that we read. And the rock was culled from memory during the pickup, because it's now considered too far away from the camera for the game to bother using the resources that it has to update it anymore. So now ZFG is going to blindly navigate back to the Deca Baba room and unload the rock by leaving the room it was tied to, causing something else, a bush, to load into its place. Link is writing his angle data to this bush on every single frame, and that data overwrites a pointer to the bush that the bush uses to find some code it usually needs to draw itself on screen. So now we're going to trick it to look for that code in a place in memory based on Link's angle. So now, watch really closely to this next part. He's going to move in a particular way to get the bush to draw on screen for exactly one frame, and watch Link's hearts when this happens. When it draws on screen, instead it's going to run code from elsewhere, selected by Link's angle and our file name, and through clever manipulation of exactly what the game code gets, what game code gets run, we apply the title screen debug file to our file. And now, ZFG has almost every item in the game, 14 hearts, and a magic meter.
Yeah, so this is, as you can probably imagine, extremely useful. So if our goal is to beat all the dungeons, obviously you probably need some items to beat them all. And this is a pretty fast way to get them, but we don't quite have exactly what we need. We actually need, what we really want here is actually some items that will help further manipulate memory. And so that gives me Song of Storms, which I can use to enter this secret grotto here. And I want to get some collectibles here. So I want a fairy from this Gossip Stone, which I can get with Sun Song. And I also want to catch a bug and a fish. And so I'm going to actually catch this fairy over my red potion. I'm going to do a glitch to dupe it. Come on. Dupe it over my red potion. And similarly, I can also do a glitch to dupe a bottle over my B button. And this is known as a reverse bottle adventure. It's a glitch that modifies certain parts of your inventory, although in this particular run, it's not really that important to modify parts of my inventory. but having that bottle in B will actually let me get a different item on my B button later on, which will be really important.
Yeah, so now that we have strength and explosives from the debug save file, we can much more easily do SRM setups here in the Lost Woods, because the Lost Woods basically gives us a canvas to work with for SRM, since it has so many rooms right next to each other with easy access bushes to actually SRM with. So after dropping a bomb shoe and entering that tunnel, ZFG had to drop a fish, which loads some code into memory that we're going to use later. And anytime you see ZFG dropping explosives or throwing a boomerang or whatever while transitioning between these rooms, he's arranging memory just like he did for the debug save file setup in Kokiri Forest. But back here in this room, there's these bushes that are actually really easy to SRM with a super slide. And again, we have to cull it, so we do the side roll here, and so it's off screen and culled whenever we transition rooms. Now we have to get a specific angle so that when we walk back into this room that we just left, we SRM one of the bushes to start running code from the fish we dropped earlier. And with memory arrangement we did, it ends up setting up Link's age to an adult, but he's actually not an adult. He's in this sort of weird man-child state, which allows us to set adult quips as a child. And so here we set Mirror Shield, and even though you can't see it, Link does have the Mirror Shield equipped. It's just invisible as child. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the rules for all dungeons a little bit. All dungeons, by definition, requires you to collect all the medallions and stones from source, meaning the natural way of obtaining it in the game. And for every medallion and stone, the blue warps that you step in at the end of each dungeon will give you its respective stone or medallion, regardless of whether you have it or not, except for Spirit and Shadow. Those two dungeons will skip out on giving you their medallions if you already have them. And unfortunately for us, the debug save file we loaded earlier gave us all the medallions in the game, including those two troublesome medallions. But this poses a challenge for us. How do we get rid of them? Well, this is all dungeons SRM, so how about we SRM our worries away? So this SRM that ZFG is doing right now will allow us to modify our quest status screen, which is where the medallions, stones, and your songs and a few other things are. By picking up a bush we SRM'd and getting a specific angle, we can delete the Spirit and Shadow medallions while keeping a few things we need, like some songs we'll use later. We drop it against a wall to hold that value, and bam, problem solved. From here, we're going to go right on with another SRM. This one will be responsible for cutting out most of the time in the run just due to how broken it is. Again, a little bit of memory arrangement here along the way to get things set up just right so that when we do our next SRM, we end up SRMing a grotto. Now, an important detail about grottos is that when they're loaded into memory, along with them is loaded a list of entrances that defines where the grotto is supposed to take you whenever you enter it. So this SRM will let us modify that entrance so we can make the grotto take us wherever we want, given an appropriate position setup. So ZFG here is going to get that position set up so that the grotto will take us to a glitched entrance value that when the game tries to decipher it, ends up loading a map based off of Link's angle. Crazy, right? So now we're able to warp anywhere we want just by getting a specific angle and entering this grotto. Now ZFG is going to do an angle setup so that when he enters it, the angle value corresponds to Spirit Temple. And believe it or not, warping anywhere with this grotto isn't the coolest part. We can actually set Foray's Wind at this glitched entrance value so we can warp back at any point, allowing us to warp anywhere with Foray's Wind and an angle setup. Absolutely insane. So here we perform another angle setup that is equal to the value of the Lost Woods, and then jump into a nearby void. The game's going to try to reload the entrance because that's what normally happens when you void out, except it's the glitched entrance that looks at Link's angle. So it takes us back to our angle value, the Lost Woods, and puts us there. A quick trip to the other side of Hyrule and back. And another thing to note, even though it looked like we were walking in a void there, the angle setup to load Spirit Temple put us at the entrance of the dungeon, but with a different room loaded, so that's why it looked like there was nothing loaded there. It's also good for us that the main room wasn't loaded because normally there's a giant push block in the way of the void that we use to warp back to Lost Woods. So a little caveat with the whole warping anywhere from everywhere thing I said earlier, we have to use Foray's Wind to go back to the glitched entrance, but we can only use it in dungeons. So we have to do this final SRM that will allow us to put Foray's Wind on our B button and use it anywhere by simulating a glitch called Bottle Adventure. When you go from child to adult, the game has to update certain equips, specifically bottles. And whenever we did the age change SRM earlier, we had a bottle on the B button. So whenever you have a stored bottle on the B button, when changing to adult, it looks at your C right item to determine what item to put on your B button. And as it turns out, fish on C right makes the game look at your Deku Nut count to determine the item value to put on your B button. And 13 is Foray's Wind, so we have to use Deku Nuts until we have 13 left. So ZFG is going to take this bush that he's SRMing over to this room over here. And then After he gets an angle set up, he's about to use Deku Nuts until he has 13 left. So there's going to be a flashing lights warning, and I'll let you know whenever you're good to look at the screen again in case that applies to you. All right, getting the angle set up. This might take a second. Sometimes it's tricky with these, especially with the ones where you have the ESS up, which is holding a slight up on the control stick a couple times. And here comes the Deku Nuts. All right, we're done with the Deku Nuts. Flashing light warning over. Now when we warp here, the camera will swing around and uncoil the thing we SRM'd in the room behind us, which will set Link's age to a glitched adult value that would normally crash the game. But the warp song makes Link invisible, so the game doesn't crash and allows the glitched adult switch to activate Bottle Adventure, update our equips, and put Froy's Wind on the B button. And with that, the SRM gauntlet is over, and it's time to have some fun.
Yeah,
that was a lot.
Yeah, that is quite a lot. So now I am prepped to be able to just warp wherever I want. So I'm warping back to Spirit Temple. And so because when you warp back to a glitched entrance, your entrance is still the glitched entrance. And so you can repeat these warps over and over again. And so I just warped back here in Spirit Temple, and I'm going to set up a warp to Twinrova now, which is going to be the first boss.
Also, something to note, we just equipped Megaton Hammer as child using a glitch called Equip Swap, which lets us equip items that are not for your respective age using this glitch.
Yeah, and since we don't have a sword on B, we're going to need to be able to use other weapons for a lot of these boss fights, like Deku Stick and the Megaton Hammer.
So we should also talk about some differences on exactly different ways you can warp. So you saw there, first I warped into Spirit Temple using Furor's Wind, and then I used a Void, and they work a little bit differently. So when you use Furor's Wind saves, normally when you use Furor's Wind, it saves your map, your room number, and your coordinates. For this, we're manipulating what map we're loading, but if it's using Furor's Wind, it's still going to use the same room number and coordinates that it was originally set at, which is why it's still set in that like out of bounds area in Spirit Temple. But when I use this Void, particularly this Void at the very beginning of the Spirit Temple, it'll always take you back to your last entrance. But in this case, when your last entrance is whatever you can choose with your angle, it'll just take you to a specific entrance that corresponds with that angle. And that's really useful because a lot of the time, warping directly with the same room number and coordinates, are you serious?
Twinrova, no!
Sometimes Twinrova sucks.
Classic Twinrova. So we can use Slingshot here.
Don't do this to me twice in a row. Okay, cool.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
I should have just taken the damage there.
We can try to use Slingshot to keep them still like that, but obviously sometimes Twinrova can still troll us and it's not fun.
And I also want to take some intentional damage from this fight. Hopefully. Okay, here we go. Fire is the best one. Fire does more residual damage than ice, so yeah, I can get all that nice damage there.
And that's because we're going to want to die on purpose at some point later. And usually that's not much of a problem in speedruns because, you know, you start with 3 hearts. But not in this one. We have 14 hearts about 5 minutes in.
The 14 hearts is actually a detriment to this speedrun. Oh, come on. Okay, this is the worst Twinrova luck I've gotten in probably years.
Yeah, this is impressively unlucky.
Yeah. This is, that's never happened before. This is marathon luck. The classic GDQ trope.
So in the first phase of the fight, ZFG was using the slingshot in order to keep one of the witches in place for an easier reflection. This time, he's going to be using the slingshot to make her move to the next platform sooner. So it's the exact opposite reason. Saves about 2 seconds per cycle here. And each of the 3 first shots here at the very beginning before you do damage to her is always going to be the same element. So we know for sure that it's going to work.
And also, normally you can't see Mirror Shield as child, but as we were charging those energy shots there, we were able to see it charging, which looks very cool.
Yes, we might have some time for donations here.
Music to my ears. Tayman donates $5 and they say, why is the commentator explaining all this obvious stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you guys probably read this in Nintendo Power 20 years ago. But, you know, just in case, I'm sure there's one kid that missed out on that copy.
Big Cam donates $10 and they say, ZFG, you are my hero. Have fun.
I'll try.
Alucard 47. They donate $50. Thank you. They say 3 a.m. GDQ is where it's at. Hype, lack of sleep, questionable judgment, Ocarina of Time finale. Oh yeah. And then Andy donates $25 and they say, I'm confused. Will Link be saving or killing the animals?
All right, so now we have some Blue Warp cutscene skips here. You guys want to talk about this?
Yeah, so when you touch a Blue Warp, usually you lose control of Link instantly and you get taken to a cutscene where the medallion is given. But as is standard for most speedruns, we can skip those. With Farah's Wind in particular here, we can touch the warp on the same frame that we activate the Farah's Wind text box, which is why ZFG was inching closer and closer until it worked out. And then if you press yes to warp away with Farah's Wind at the exact right moment, then you will skip the cutscene at the same time as you're given the medallion. So you don't have to go to the Chamber of Sages. And now we do, in fact, have the Spirit Medallion. And Spirit is our first dungeon beaten.
So next up is going to be Forest Temple and beating Phantom Ganon. So I just set up an angle that will take me to Phantom Ganon. So I just got to reset Farah's Wind so I can warp back after this. And just void out here. And Phantom Ganon. Oh, we should probably talk about crashes. So I guess we kind of neglected to mention this earlier, but every time I'm doing any of these angle setups, they are angle perfect. I have to do a setup to get one angle out of 65,000 plus total possible angles that Link can face. And if I mess up, I will probably crash the game. So, yeah, every single angle setup like this is a risk of crashing, and I have to not fail.
Fortunately for us, though, we have something called an angle finder tool that I was able to put together after some research into Ocarina of Time's movement engine. Ocarina of Time's movement is so consistent and it's super solid. We're able to change our angle amount by very specific amounts that we have total control over in various different ways. And because we have so many different options of like different angle adjustments that we have, we're able to sort of put together a giant graph of like possible routes for angles. So I was able to put a tool together that takes in any amount of starting angles. So like sometimes you'll, if you're near a wall, you'll add those into your list of starting angles. And then you put in a list of destination angles that you want. And the program is able to find the quickest path from point A to point B with your angles. And it saves a lot of time because early on, whenever we were like first starting out with manual testing, these normally took like 30 minutes to maybe even more to find like a halfway decent setup. But as we realized that we were going to need more and more angles, we realized that we're going to need something to help us get through these. So I was able to put together that angle finder tool, and it's great. It saves so much time because in 100% there are over 100 angles, specifically 101 angle setups that we need. And if you miss any of them, the game will crash. More than likely. So we have one more angle setup here, and then we actually do a position setup as well so that we can get a one frame input for the up input for activating Forays Wind. That's a really nice, just little quality of life thing there.
Yeah, every time I'm using Forays Wind to warp away on those blue warps, that's a one frame. I have one frame to actually step on the blue warp with Forays Wind and use Forays Wind. And so
here's the third one.
Yep. So from this point on, we're going to be warping a little bit differently. We're going to only be using Forays Wind and not have to go back to Spirit Temple. So I mentioned earlier how that specific void in Spirit Temple will put you at a specific entrance rather than using coordinates and room number that Forays Wind does. Well, the coordinates and room number of entering Baronade's room right here is actually perfect for all the future warps we want to do. Most of the boss fights take place in room 1, and so when I set Furrow's Wind here in a second, it'll just set in room 1, and Baronade's coordinates are just perfect for everything else we want to warp to. So now we don't need to keep going back to Spirit Temple. The reason we wanted to for the other ones, for Twinrova and Phantom Ganon, is Twinrova is in room 3, and Phantom Ganon's coordinates are just terrible and like super far away from normal. What normal good coordinates are.
So you're going to see ZFG taking some final damage from this boss, both because he wants to die soon on purpose, and also because when you take damage, the boss unburies itself from the ground and moves on to the next phase sooner. So this next cutscene skip here is going to be a little bit different than the other ones because Princess Ruto occupies this blue warp, and so the blue warp is not going to be quite as simple to gain control of Link in. So ZFG is going to run up to this blue warp very quickly before it fully initializes, and then we're going to use Din's Fire as the blue warp is supposed to grab Link, and that's going to allow ZFG to retain control here. He's going to die in order to break free of Ruto continually pulling him back, and then hopefully we'll get this Ruto's text at the same time as pulling up Farrah's Wind, which is a frame-perfect input. Very nice.
Oh. I was scared.
That's a big scary part. You have one frame to get Farrah's Wind in there, and if you don't get it, then you have to watch the cutscene.
Yeah, so something to note about these, the dungeons that don't send you to the Chamber of Sages. So that would be Baronade, Goma, King Dodongo, and Vivalgia. Those, whenever you Furrow's Wind away from them, they end up sending you to Deku Tree. So that's where we just were, and whenever we were in the void there. And there's some walls near the entrance that we're able to use for angle setups to quickly get to the other bosses. So
yeah, so Morpha is a very interesting boss for this. So normally as adult, you need to use the hookshot to beat Morpha. And Child can technically equip the hookshot, but if you try to use it, it'll actually soft lock Link. So this fight has to be done without hookshot, which can be quite annoying. But it can also be quite fast if I get lucky. Let's see, can I? Oh, I can't even go for it, dude.
Dang. So if Morpha had... Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I have to just kind of manipulate Morpha while making a tentacle. Morpha, I have to like make the tentacle stick out in one direction, climb this platform from a different direction, and then just like crouch stab. What? It normally makes Morpha like the ball just kind of bounce in the water, and it didn't do that there. Wait, do I get a second chance at this? No, of course not.
Oh, it's still in the corner.
So what we were hoping for at the beginning there, Morpha can spawn initially at any one of 8 positions surrounding the square platform you're on, at either of the 4 corners or at either of the 4 edges. And when she spawns at the corners, she's actually too far away to hit from standing. But if she spawns at one of the edges, so it's a 50% chance, you can stand right at the edge and crouch stab downwards with the Deku Stick and just barely snipe her out of the water and just do it repeatedly and get like a 10-second fight. But if you're unlucky enough to not get that luck or miss it, then we have to deal with this.
Yeah, so
not the best, but pretty good fight otherwise.
It's not the worst. It can go a lot worse.
10
so
minutes
I'll take it.
All right. Yeah, so 10 seconds or 2 minutes is about what you expect with this fight.
Yeah.
Time for a quick donation?
Yeah, donation would be good here.
Sure. Let's see. Deathly Escape donates $25. They say, hello from ZFG's offline chat. We are all hyped for the run.
Hey, guys.
And so this is one of the warps that's going to send us to, well, it's going to try to send us to the Chamber of Sages. So we'll be able to skip out going to Deku Tree and just go directly to the next spot that we're going. We're going to do an angle setup here that I'm particularly fond of. It's just 3 hammer swings to the side. and you're good to go. That's all it is. And this is all these warps are going to be using the Baronade coordinates. So we're going to spawn a little bit off to the side here, not the usual spot, but
Yeah, the Baronade coordinates, it's good for warping into every boss, but it'll be a little bit different for all of them. They're not all oriented exactly the same way. Like, I'll just kind of appear in the air there, off to the side a little bit.
whatever works.
Yeah, if it works, then that's good enough. Considering how lucky it is that one particular coordinate spot works for everything else besides those first two bosses, that's very convenient. Because a lot of the time, the same room number and same coordinates in other maps will very often just put you out of bounds. And so landing in bounds is good. Because if you were to just fall out of bounds and you still have the glitched entrance, then you will likely crash because you're not really setting up any particular angle.
Yeah, and for the angle that we get in, I believe, Baronade's room is 8,000, which is a guaranteed crash if we were to warp anywhere out of bounds.
So one more cutscene skip coming up here.
And this one will be a wrong warp, so we'll go from Deku to Deku. That makes sense, right?
Yep. That one was kind of scary.
Got that with like a 4-frame run. That was good.
All right, next warp, and this is going to be kind of in order. We're going straight to King Dodongo right after Goma. So you may have noticed there, I actually did fall out of bounds. I actually kind of lied last time, and I said we were always in bounds. King Dodongo is kind of an exception where we were out of bounds, but luckily enough, when you fall into the King Dodongo room, the game just checks your Y coordinate to start the fight. So as soon as you fall past a certain point, you're just warped into the fight immediately. So it doesn't matter about being out of bounds.
This is probably a good
And
time
here
for
you gotta
donations.
throw the bomb off the wall to look cool, because it's the only interesting thing you can do during this fight.
Yeah.
Except for getting a third cycle. Getting a third cycle is pretty cool.
I disagree. I don't think that's very cool. I guess we can also use a bomb flower. So yeah, the bosses in this run are all fairly easy, minus the Morpha, because Morpha is just special. But the bosses in OT speedruns are generally pretty pushovery. There's usually a strat to just like beat them very easily, very quickly.
Especially with glitches like ISG at our disposal, Infinite Sword Glitch, which we actually used against Phantom Ganon, but we kind of glossed over it because there was other stuff happening too. An Infinite Sword Glitch is a glitch where you keep your sword swinging on every frame, you just never deactivate its hitbox, and so it just deals constant damage. And we'll see that again coming up on another boss.
This next boss, actually.
All right, back to Deku one more time. Another angle setup. This one is going to the boss of the Shadow Temple, Bongo Bongo, and he just drops straight in. This is actually another one kind of like King Dodongo, where it actually, your Y coordinate doesn't matter, or it's just a Y coordinate check. You'll get warped in no matter what. Even if it wasn't, you would actually still land in bounds, but an extra safety net. So this fight, relatively simple with ISG. I can just stand back and get ISG real quick, and then shoot the hands, shoot the eyes. You actually still shoot his eye before he actually comes down. You just know where to aim. And nice quick kill.
Also, probably
And
want to make
that's-
an.
And that's, I was just gonna say, that's seven bosses down, 7 dungeons, so only one more after this. And since this blue warp is one that goes directly to Chamber of Sages, we will be able to directly warp to the next boss. And if you're keeping track, that's going to be Volvagia.
Also, probably want to make a note that we've been using potions in this run, which is not something that we normally see in an Ocarina of Time speedrun.
Yeah, this run uses so much magic that we actually have to resort to green and blue potions, which luckily the debug file gives us. It's extremely rare for any OOT speedrun to ever even think about magic.
Here's a quick swap again to give us Megaton Hammer.
Oh, I should probably do that first.
Oh, man.
That would have been awful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
So this angle is going to get me to Volvagia, and this fight is actually going to be very interesting. I'm going to warp away, fall into Volvagia, and I'm actually under the arena where the fight takes place. And Volvagia is actually here under the arena before the fight starts, and I can damage Volvagia. And so I just did a ton of damage to Volvagia. The fight hasn't even started yet, and now I will be able to kill Volvagia in a single hit. And this is because, just luckily, the coordinates, we mentioned setting the coordinates back at Baronade's room, those coordinates just happen to correspond to under the arena here, and just incredibly convenient. So we can make this fight super fast. And so you can't kill Volvagia before the fight starts. The only way to kill Volvagia is after stunning Volvagia with the hammer. So I need at least one hammer stun.
I saw a comment someone made that I would actually like to respond to. Someone said, shouldn't this category be called all bosses? Which is an interesting point, because we do all of the dungeon bosses.
Did I miscount?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
So
I don't know
enough
how to
time.
count.
You have
I
enough
guess
time.
you did 8.
Yeah, I have more than enough time, but that's dumb. I'll see if I get an extra slash. No, I missed. I wonder if I counted for Hundo. You're supposed to do 7 stabs in Hundo and 9 stabs in all dungeons.
Because you have
I
the
think I
big
might
one
have
sword.
mixed that up. Yeah.
There
Oh
we
well,
go.
it doesn't actually matter.
You were talking
Except
about all
for
bosses?
my time.
Yeah, right. So all bosses would probably include stuff like Ganondorf, which is a boss that very few runs actually get to. But in particular, we have to define what beating a dungeon means somehow. And we actually had a vote on this back when all this SRM stuff was discovered, and the possibility of finishing a dungeon so quickly became a real thing. And so we just defined beating a dungeon as defeating the boss manually, because it actually is possible to use SRM to clear bosses remotely. But we said that wasn't allowed. And also collecting the reward from the boss or from the dungeon manually as well by using the blue warp.
And also to add on to that, so all dungeons has been a category for a very long time, and like long before SRM was found. And we never thought that we'd actually be able to just warp straight to the bosses. But the category name doesn't really change just because the strategies used in the category change. And so that's kind of why it's still the same.
Also worth noting that there is a no SRM version of most categories that allow SRM to begin with. All dungeons included.
Yeah, so this is the setup for the final SRM of the run. We are about to end. All the bosses are done, all the dungeons have been beaten, and now we just have to actually get to the end. You guys want to talk about this?
Yeah, so similar to earlier, we have to arrange memory, and we dropped the fish to load its code into memory. We never picked up the fish again, so everyone say thank you to the fish. It did a lot of work for us. But for this bush that we're picking up, we need to get a specific position and angle for it. And what it does is it sets our current cutscene value. So after we pick up the invisible bush, we need to get a specific position and angle set up so that we're able to set up our current cutscene. Then we use phrase when to, we're supposed to use phrase when to warp away, but it's okay. We can reset up this SRM again.
Yeah, so that's a one frame unbufferable input. I actually am not able to pause during that. which normally would make it easier.
Yeah.
Thankfully, all I have to do is just redo the setup. Pretty simple.
Yeah, because whenever a cutscene is playing, since we set our current cutscene with that SRM, you can't pause during cutscenes, so that's why. But fortunately for us, resetting it up isn't too hard at all. We just have to go through this motion again. All right, getting the angle set up one more time. Picking up the bush, getting a specific position and rotation set up so that we can set our current cutscene to the right value. And then with that current cutscene value, we...
Oh my god.
Oh no!
No,
we
dude.
do it again. Third time's the charm.
Careful, ZFG. You only have 13 more tries with your bomb shoot count.
Oh no.
I'm sweating. All right.
All right, third try.
Third try.
Dude,
Oh no!
I swear I'm not usually this bad at it.
It's okay. Fourth try's the charm, as they say.
And I got everything else in this run first try.
Yeah, the rest of the run was pretty good. Like exceptionally well, considering everything.
I'm just trying to stall for donations.
Of course.
I have donations.
That said, it might actually be a bad time.
Okay.
But very soon, very soon.
Yeah, very soon. All right, fourth time.
There we go. And so with
that's
that,
the end, and that's time.
and if you look at the screen, we're on the dungeon design part of the credits. So
Yeah,
thank you.
So we warped directly to the credits, and just by pure coincidence, this happens to be the credits that says Dungeon Design at the end of the All Dungeons speedrun.
How appropriate. It works out like that.
Well
So
done,
yeah,
ZFG.
thanks. That is the run. That's very, very interesting, very glitch-heavy run. So we were gonna talk about something in the credits. What are we gonna mention?
Something to mention is that, like, how much of a difference there is between all dungeons SRM and no SRM.
True.
Yeah. So SRM, as we've demonstrated today, is an incredibly broken glitch, and it's so broken that we decided that we should have split categories for categories that allow it and categories that ban it. Because I personally think it's a really cool glitch. Some people don't, but regardless, it's like it's so significant that it deserves its own thing. And yeah, as we were saying, all dungeons without SRM is still its own thing. It has a lot of active runners, and it's actually like twice as long as this. I think SRM essentially cut half the time off of all dungeons.
Yeah, and more than that too. SRM cut half the time off of all dungeons, and it cut more than half the time off of any percent. It cut like 40 minutes off of 100%. It's insanely powerful.
Yeah. And also, as a side note, something about this run that's kind of cool. So for many years, there's a lot of like side categories and like challenge categories for Ocarina of Time, because there's so many glitches you can do that people kind of made their own creative challenges. And one that started out as a kind of silly thing was no doors. Some people tried to beat the game with no doors, without opening any doors, and they were successful. And then they moved on to, okay, can you beat all the dungeons with no doors? And that one actually took several years of research, and I think it took like 3 or 4 years of people trying to figure out how you can beat all dungeons without a door. And it was eventually finally possible in 2017, pre-SRM. And now with SRM found, this run was actually all dungeons, no doors. There actually was not a single door open this run.
As a child, no less.
And as child, yeah. We also were looking for ways to beat all the dungeons as child for a long time. That was also almost possible for a long time. Only Spirit Temple was the one you couldn't beat, but now with SRM, we just do all of them as child instead.
And the reason for that was because of Mirror Shield.
Yeah, because of Mirror Shield. So enough talking. I think we have a glitch exhibition to do, right?
Ooh.
Yes, we do.
All right. Let's switch over to that.
And it should take about, I think, 10 to 15 minutes for the whole thing.
Yep. All right, so for this glitch exhibition, I'm actually going to be using a different version. I'm going to be using a modded version called the Practice ROM, also known as GZ. So this is going to be a modded version of Ocarina of Time that has a lot of cool practice tools to help practice, learn, help visualize stuff. And it also has save states. I can actually save and load save states. And this will be very useful for helping me show off all these cool glitches nice and quick without having to wait too long in between all of them. So let's just get right into it. Also, you can see some numbers on the side. These are... another feature is that I can set up memory watches, so I can see certain things in memory. Those numbers on the side are just angles. They're just for personal reference, just so I don't mess anything up. But you'll kind of be able to see how angle setups work when I do this glitch exhibition. So anyway, let's start. So the first glitch I want to show off is a glitch called Quick Put Away. And the first thing I'm going to do is take out a Deku Stick as adult and try to... it's invisible as adult, but I'm going to try to put it away on the frame before I get hit. Right there. So now the game kind of interprets the stick as put away, but Link is still holding it in his hand. So I'm going to try to break it in a way so that the put away animation doesn't happen. And this gives Link some really glitched sword properties. So I can do stuff like this. So now the sword can suddenly light torches. So this glitch gives the sword a ton of different damage properties. I think it's like 14 different damage types all in this one sword attack. Including ice arrows like this. I can freeze these guys. And if I have ISG, because of the fire, the fire that was enabling lighting the torches was Din's fire. And so bombs will instantly explode when I have ISG, which also means I can do hovers like this. This is like Majora's Mask style bomb hovering, which has not really been possible in Ocarina of Time, but now is, thanks to this, which is really cool. And another thing is that it's really powerful. It's actually more powerful than Big One Sword Jump Slash. So I'm going to demonstrate it on this Iron Knuckle. So that Iron Knuckle just died in 3 hits. It does 10 damage, where Big One Sword Jump Slash does 8. So this is actually the most damage you can do in the game, which is really cool. So next glitch I want to show off. This is actually a glitch that was done in the run. So if you remember, there was an SRM that I did to become adult. So I'm actually going to do that again here, but show off a little bit more of what's actually going on during that SRM. So I'm going to set up my angle. Come on. And as soon as I go through here, I'll become adult. And you can see, like, all my equips are things that adult can equip, and I can even equip stuff like Goron Tunic and Hover Boots and everything. And I want to just walk around a little bit, because things are a little bit different than they should be. So this causes a lot of weird graphical glitches, like this water, and shooting the bow makes this like Keaton mask thing appear. It's like half Keaton mask. And we got some stretchy textures attaching to Link. And we can take a little tour around Lost Woods, and we got a show going on over there. And going through over here, Skull Kid also has some weird stuff going on. This over here is my favorite.
Hope Skull Kid gets to feeling better.
Yeah, so this gossip stone is like attached to this scrub, and all these textures are like super stretched out. And now after shooting that scrub, the gossip stone attaches to Link and just keeps going.
Whenever you're wearing hover boots, it looks like it's a like stretchy Laffy Taffy attached to Link.
Yeah. All right, so this next one is another SRM that I did during the run. I'm going to show a little bit more of what's going on. So this is the quest status SRM. This is the one that was deleting medallions. So I can actually pull up a menu that will help visualize what's going on better. So this is my quest status menu right now. This shows all the medallions and songs and everything. As soon as I go through here, everything's gone. And as soon as I pick this up, you can start seeing everything changing in real time. So this is what's actually happening during this SRM is whatever angle I choose is just gonna give me a bunch of random stuff. And one interesting thing to note here is this heart pieces. So the number that's important here is the 3 that's changing to B. So 3 heart pieces is pretty normal, but B heart pieces is 11. And so this is what 11 heart pieces looks like. Pretty normal. And when you have more than 3 heart pieces, some weird stuff starts happening when you actually pick up a heart piece. So when I pick up this heart piece with 11 heart pieces, it says I got the silver scale.
Congrats.
That is not correct. So that doesn't actually give me the silver scale, but it just gives you some weird glitch text boxes. I'll just show off a few interesting glitch text boxes with different heart piece values. So this one won't open. With 5 heart pieces, I find the boss key.
The key to my heart.
This one is I don't have enough rupees, and it's also a soft lock. I can't get out of this text box. This one is all right, you're done. And this one's pretty good. Bombs, 5 pieces.
Do we buy
you
them,
cannot
chat?
actually. Unfortunately, you cannot actually buy bombs with this, but you can move the cursor. But neither of the options do anything.
Scam.
So here in Zora's River, I can actually start setting up my next glitch. I'm going to do one more SRM, and the memory setup I have to do for it, I can do it right here on this bridge.
There's our friend the fish again.
I got to throw all these items around, and then load the lower part of Zora's River. And this will load frogs, the frogs you play a bunch of songs for in a specific part in memory. And those are going to play a part in what's going to happen with this next SRM. So once again, do a super slide off this grass, pick up nothing, get an angle. And so this SRM is going to modify my boots and tunics. So this is going to be a pretty interesting one. So when I pause here and I go to the screen, Link is suddenly blue, and the flashing, I got the flashing icon there. It's not over Kukuri's tunic, by the way. So Link is now walking kind of funny, and he has a blue tunic on. This is not the Zora tunic. This is actually a glitch tunic. This is the C tunic, or 12 in decimal. And these boots, we call them F boots because these are F in hexadecimal. And these boots have a really interesting property in that they have no gravity. So I can just fly around, and the only way to fall is doing a jump slash. So I can just fly wherever I want and jump slash whenever I want to fall. And I can also shield damage in the air and go really fast. And so not only can I fly, but I can fly backwards really fast. So this is, as you can imagine, super useful. This is useful in 100% a lot. 100% almost entirely revolves around this. And there's one downside, though. If you get hit in the air with this, you cannot save yourself. You are completely stuck. There's absolutely nothing I can do to fall now, except for unequip the boots, which is really bad because then I'd have to set up the glitch again. So Link is just permanently stuck, flying off forever, going back to his home planet. But what's really cool about these F-boots is I can combine it with the warping glitch. So the warping glitch that was done in the run, where I can warp wherever I want based on my angle, I can combine that using F-boots. So here I have Fro's Wind set in Dodongo's Cavern, in this room, at these coordinates right near this door, and I'm going to warp to Shadow Temple. And a lot of the time when you warp from one dungeon to another with weird coordinates and room number, you're probably just going to fall out of bounds, and that would be the case here. But with F boots, I can just float to inbounds. I don't care that I'm out of bounds because I can just float over. And so this is really cool. This gives F boots and angle warping a huge amount of synergy. Again, this is like something 100% does a lot. Just combines being able to warp anywhere with being able to fly. You also may notice Link looks like he's walking really weird. So just so happens to be that some of these glitch warps happen to rotate Link, like set certain rotation values to a weird thing. And so Link ends up walking really funny. So a lot of people ask if this affects Link's hitbox. So I can actually turn on a hitbox viewer here. So Link's hitbox does not get skewed, does not tilt, but it is shrunk. It kind of essentially goes from Link's feet to his head. It does, however, affect the sword hitbox. So like the sword still like extends from Link's body properly. And so if I get hit here, this will actually remove one of the rotations, and I'll be rotated only on one axis instead of two. And now it looks like I'm completely under the floor. And if I take a look at the hitbox now, it's just like a pancake hitbox. It's super thin. You can still get hit, but it's a lot harder. And you'll still go flying just from taking a little hit from a floor raiser like that. So a lot of people ask if F boots are these really cool glitch boots. Are there other glitch boots? And the answer is yes, but they all do sort of one thing. So I've just put two numbers on the screen. I put my y coordinate and my y velocity. So the 1223 is my y coordinate, and that 0, that's now 3.5, is my y velocity. I just want to use those for reference to show how much velocity and units are. So this tree is about 500 units, and my y velocity there was 3.5. Just for reference to show off what other glitch boots do. So this is what most other glitch boots do. Is this. It flings you upwards ridiculously fast. I am now already over 1 million, 2 million units high. I am 40,000 Y velocity and continuing to accelerate, and Link is squished, and the game is lagging really bad. And that is what most of the other glitched boots do. So F boots is pretty much the only useful one. And so I'm going to do one more warp here. So back to no F boots. What am I doing? Okay. So I have one warp I want to show off. I'm going to get an angle. This angle I'm going to get is 0x dad. And this is going to warp me to Ganon's castle. And it specifically warps me to a part in Ganon's castle behind a loading trigger. And behind this loading trigger, I can actually load the room multiple times. And if I'm lucky, I can kind of get a funny little visual glitch to happen. It's a little bit random-ish. It's kind of hard to get sometimes. I'll try one more time, see if I can get it. No. All right, can I just get this? Okay, okay. Let me just try the other glitch then. So there's one other more apparent visual glitch, which sometimes isn't consistent, even though I thought it was. Okay, let me just do this. This should be consistent. And also, Link is upside down. Did I forget to mention that? That's probably important to mention.
We're too normalized to it.
It's too normal.
Yeah. So Link is completely upside down. Ganon's castle got a bit of a makeover, so a lot of the walls are a bit different than usual. Ganon redid the place. I think it looks better. I like it.
It looks great. It looks great.
Yeah. And so being upside down, you can actually still hover. You can still do stuff like hovering, and it looks pretty interesting. So I'm going to try to set up a hover. And hover off this ledge, hopefully. And so this is what upside down hovering looks like. Link will be right side up for a few frames and then return to upside down. Looks very wonderful. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the glitch exhibition, and I will leave it here. And this will be the last thing you see of a game on GDQ. And that's it.
Amazing.
It's art, really.